2 more weeks to go in the regular season, 3 more weeks to go in the NFL season. We certainly look at schedule a little bit more, especially if we're looking just for 1 week plays. So let's get into it here, and we'll just go position by position. I'll cherry pick some of the more choice options here. Quarterback, obviously, Mr. Joe Flacco. Been giving him love here on these videos, even actually maybe even before he took a snap for the Cleveland Browns. Had a good vibe on him. Certainly looking good this week with the matchup against the Houston Texans in Houston, yes, but they are pretty giving these days. Pretty tough to run on as well. We can certainly look at Nicholas Mullins. I actually kind of like Nick Mullins last week. I did list him as a reach in my article at fantasypoints.com. We do have a good matchup here by the numbers this week against the Detroit Lions. That's in Minnesota. Then he also has Green Bay, which is a pretty darn good matchup. So Nick Mullins looking pretty good here for the next couple of weeks. Of course, we can even back up a moment and talk Jake Browning, who has been absolutely kicking ass. It's almost like we don't even notice Burrow's gone. I know that's kind of crazy to say, especially I'm a big Burrow guy, but we do have the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. I think that's a beatable matchup, man. These guys have kind of packed it in. Let's be honest. We don't know if Minka Fitzpatrick is going to play. So Jake Browning looking pretty good. On the downside, may not have Jamar Chase, but they've done a really nice job getting other people involved here, like Tanner Hudson, the tight end. Might only be third on the team in tight end snaps, but when he's out there, they throw him the ball and he finds those soft spots in the zone and gets open, makes plays. What else? Well, we can look at Tommy DeVito here, Tommy Cutlets, with a very good matchup this week in Philadelphia. I do like that. Pretty good matchup there for Wan'Dale Robinson. We got a little Darren Waller back as well. Let's move on because we're talking lower end guys here. Otherwise, like, well, Easton Stick and Will Levis, who's banged up. Aiden O'Connell did do very well last week. We'll move on, though, and talk running backs. And, you know, I've gotten the Bears backfield wrong a couple of times this year, like namely week 14, when I thought, I don't know, Roshan Johnson would catch a couple of balls. Number one, I lost a prop on him, but of course, in week 15, Roshan was the guy who got the play. He had 5 carries for 36, and he had those 4 grabs for 24. Dude only had 1 touch the week before. But here's the point, and it's a good point, because Deontay Foreman is the most game script dependent running back in the league outside of Derrick Henry. We can call him the most game script dependent running back in the NFC. And this is a very, very good spot. They are up against the Cardinals. They are favorites in the game. So maybe Kyler Murray balls out and they have a lead and it's kind of a moot point. But if you're looking for a needle mover for week 16, I would have to submit Deontay Foreman, and Roshan would be next there, by the way. Khalil Herbert is just kind of in no man's land right now. He doesn't have a role on early downs, goal line, third down, nothing. Moving on, though, a couple of guys I've been giving love to for a while, especially Tajay Spears. Listening to Derrick Henry after their loss and elimination from the playoffs in week 15 kind of sounded like a guy who had just kind of played his last game for the Tennessee Titans. So I don't think that's the case, but there's every reason to, as I've been saying all year, kind of turn the page a little bit and evaluate Tajay Spears, because that's going to help them in 2024. They're not going anywhere in 2023. So let's evaluate Tajay Spears to help determine their needs in the offseason. Do they need to look at free agency at running back? Do they go back to the draft? As you know from watching these videos, if you have all year or listen to me on Sirius XM, I have been all in on Tajay Spears, like all the way from the jump. It hasn't been unbelievable. Didn't expect the world. You know, still worry about his knee, by the way, or a lack of ACL. But I mean, he's been great. Absolutely fantastic player. Might not be the biggest guy to handle the workload, but I mean, he is tough as hell, very versatile, make you miss, lateral agility at the yin yang, contact balance is amazing. He's an awesome dude. Love me some Tajay Spears. Also love Chase Brown, who I watched practice at the Senior Bowl, just like I did Tajay Spears last year, by the way. Arguably the two most impressive backs last year, when I really think about it, were Chase Brown and Tajay Spears. I set up interviews with both guys at the Combine just to feel them out a little bit. Different type of guys, like them equally. I will say Chase Brown, just an amazing guy, like ripped, like super, super polite. I mean, his brother, their whole family, it's a great story. And how about speaking of great, how about the actual play on the field? I mean, this kid has been shot out of a cannon, and maybe we're comparing that a little bit to Joe Mixon, but, he might not be the biggest guy, but he could be like an Austin Eckler type. And in fact, talking with Tom Brawley on Sirius XM this morning about it, they're going to move on from Joe Mixon. I think there's a very good chance that Chase Brown is their lead back next year with another guy in the mix there, like a dual backfield, but he'll be the top guy, the primary guy. So get him in a keeper league right now, dynasty even. I'll give an example. Last year in the Fantasy Points Dynasty League, I was dead and picked up Ty Chandler. There you go. I mean, this is what we're doing here this late in the year. If you're out of it in a keeper or a dynasty league, I would go back in the Chief backfield to look at Jerick McKinnon if I'm still looking for options. It does look like Isaiah Pacheco will return this week, which means Clyde Edwards-Helaire is SOL most likely, but I think Jerick McKinnon with a touchdown in the last 2 games can continue to, be a factor. Obviously, the dude ended the regular season last year with 6 straight touchdowns, 6 straight games with a touchdown. Then, of course, with the Keaton Mitchell news, unfortunately, I actually did the same thing with Justice Hill last year in that same league. I actually used him a couple of times, but there you go. That's another example. He actually has had a couple of good games. And now with Keaton Mitchell out, I mean, they're out of options basically, and they've kept this guy around for a while. He's not a bad receiver. They even use him in short yardage at times to kind of throw the defense off. So, I mean, if you're desperate on the low end, I think we're looking at 50% of the snaps here with Gus Edwards there. If they're behind, then that should be Justice Hill time. Wide receivers on that waiver wire for week 16. If you watched the video last week or the week before, you may recall I talked about Noah Brown, and basically my point was, hey, this could be a unique opportunity to get like a major target hound this late in the season, like a go-to guy. Obviously, that's exactly what he was in week 15. Granted, did I expect it? I didn't know what to expect because he was banged up going into the game, and we were down to Casey Keenum. So I was a little worried about backing him, and well, he went off 8 grabs for 82 with a touch, with or without Nico Collins. I think we are looking at potential needle mover type here, and obviously, though, we'll see about CJ Stroud, but one of the many things that the Texans have done better than other teams in the NFL this year is secure a better quarterback room. Like, look at the Jets. They're sitting there with Case Keenum and Davis Mills. That's a pretty good backup situation there. Let's move on to Curtis Samuel, another guy I think I gave love to last week. As someone who had him in his number 1 league, he's somewhat matchup proof. Now, he was banged up for a couple of weeks there in November, but he's back. Season high 21 fantasy points last week, a little bit of matchup proof, but you like him against teams with shakier slots, and also teams that are going to be with a lead. Hopefully that would be nice. Most teams do have a lead. Of course, he has the Jets. I think that's this week. That's not the best matchup, but hey, it's probably the best inside for what it's worth. I think I'd rather take my chances inside there against the Jets. So that could mean Terry McLaurin is erased this week, and so is Jahan Dotson, and Logan Thomas hasn't done much. We're kind of only left with Curtis Samuel unless we want to start throwing to randos like Byron Pringle again. Otherwise, I still would submit Josh Palmer. I think I talked about him last week. once again, an injured guy that you just don't know if you don't want to go all in on him. But obviously now that we've seen him make a big play here with Easton Stick, who I think I said that is pretty decent, not horrible. Quentin Johnston, I believe I lost a prop on him. One of the only losses, the only loss on Thursday. I don't trust Quentin Johnston. So it's Josh Palmer or bust, with or without Keenan Allen. So we'll see about Keenan Allen. I'll also throw Dontavian Wicks. Sometimes you almost ignore like target share and all that stuff. I mean, he actually leads the team with a 22% targets per route run share. But the snaps aren't that high. But again, he's making plays. He is absolutely balling, leading the team in yards per route run at 2.27 with that 22% target per route run share, which is really good. We'll see about Christian Watson this week. He's the immediate backup to Watson. And then Jaden Reed also banged up. So just plug him on in there in Green Bay. What's that, Devontae Adams? You're gone? All right. Well, we'll get Watson. We'll get Jaden Reed. Granted, it hasn't been incredible and seamless, but these guys are doing overall pretty darn well. Speaking of doing well, the tight ends this year have done very, very well, and that's a function of how defenses are playing these days. 2 high safeties, for example. So we've had a higher number of dudes here. How about my guy Hunter Henry? As long as he's not in my starting lineup, we're good. Because I got a couple of goose eggs from the guy in my number 1 league, and then caught him, and rest is history. He's going off, and he's got a great matchup this week against the Denver Broncos. So Mr. Red Zone, Hunter Henry, he did get a little dinged up. Check the status there. I like Tucker Kraft these next couple of weeks. I think you could feel pretty good about him, more than just like a check down guy. Get some red zone love, athletic. I mean, he's showing almost as well as Luke Musgrave, who was the number 1 tight end. We'll see about Luke Musgrave if he comes back. That would be a problem, but I don't know if we're looking at that. Tanner Hudson this week has an incredible matchup against Pittsburgh. Unbelievable. It's the best matchup if you look at the data over the last 5 weeks for tight ends, and Minkah Fitzpatrick may not play, and they may have packed it in. So I like that one there. Michael Mayer, really nice play and game last week. I did go in on his prop, but not the best matchup against KC, but Hunter Henry did get it done in that matchup last week. And then we also have Indy after that for Mayer. And then a couple of more here. Chiggy Okonkwo. I mean, I'm giving him some love. That ceiling is decent nowadays, like 6-7 points. Still waiting on like a big play or a touchdown, but I do like these next 2 matchups, Seattle and Houston. We'll see about Will Levis. Of course, they have Ryan Tannehill, which might be an upgrade if Will Levis is out. And then, Cade Otton's okay. Jacksonville, New Orleans, Gerald Everett's okay. My guy Tyler Conklin, all he does is catch 3 to 4 balls. But if you need upside this week, short week, but how about a little Juwan Johnson, who I did like a lot this summer, and not just because he's from South Jersey like I am. Went to high school with Corey Clement, or the same high school there. But, he did click with Derek Carr this summer. He is very athletic. He's a former wide receiver. He did score last week, and the Rams have been a good matchup. Maybe not as much lately, but that also could be a function of who they played. They've been a good matchup. So not a bad play or pickup. Juwan Johnson. Well, we'll continue to update the report all week at fantasypoints.com. I'll be working on week 16 projections all day today. So if you're a subscriber, stay tuned for that. Up on the site late tonight. I'll update the waiver wire tomorrow, pending injuries, all the gambling content, all the game preview stuff for, dare I say, the most important weekend in the history of fantasy football, coming at us right here this week, starting on Thursday with week 16, the semis. I'm John Hansen. I'll wrap it up here. Thanks for liking, subscribing, all that good stuff, and we'll catch you next time.